Hey, NoPixel19 here. Welcome back to another video. This is definitely not something I've ever posted before or in similar content. But it's 3 in the morning and I'm listening to some lo-fi, so I'm feeling pretty chill. I've wanted to make this video for a while and I've been thinking about how I would want to make this video. And it's basically I guess you could call it a diary of sorts. I've wanted to recount how it's been like my first year of post-secondary studies since I've left high school. And I already know people are probably clicking off the video right now. Straight up, if you guys don't like this video, if you don't like the concept of this video, you guys can leave right now and you can go watch some other video. I would not mind. For those of you who decide to stick around, this is going to be probably a long video and there's going to be a lot of talking. I know some people, for whatever reason, they like the sound of my voice, they find it calming, or they'll have it playing in the background, so if you guys want to do that, I'm completely fine with it. The main reason for this video isn't because of YouTube, isn't because of anything, it's just mainly for myself. I want to be able to have this video where I can write down or jot down all my thoughts that I'm having and my experiences, and maybe I'll be able to look back on it in the past and the future, or I'll make another one when I finish my second year of college. But I know one thing that I thought was that this video could possibly help somebody who's going through their last year of high school, is applying to post-secondary. I feel like maybe if this kind of video was available to me, it's something that I would have watched. But anyways, I'm going to stop rambling for now. Keep in mind this video will be unedited or very minimally edited to remove any awkward pauses or so. So there is that. Anyways, I'm gonna just continue onwards. So I guess the first thing I should probably want to talk about is how I applied to college. So in Canada, you can apply to university or you can apply to college, and I'm pretty sure that's how it is for the most part in most of the Western world. I don't know how it is like in the eastern side of the whole world, but anyways, because you're still in high school and the government still has all of your information and so does your school, a lot of the work is done for you when it comes to sending out your marks, sending out a lot of your personal information, whatever the universities might need. And what comes down to you is you have to pay money to apply to university. Now, what does that mean? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if you wanted to apply to universities, you would have to pay $100 for three submissions, for 3 applications, my bad. So you would be able to choose the university and the specific program that you're applying to. If you wanted to, say, apply for 4 or apply for 5 programs, every single additional application costed an additional $50. So the main thing that a lot of teachers would say is just stick with the 3. You oftentimes don't need more if you're sure you're going to be able to make it. Maybe if you feel uncomfortable or you want to have a better chance, you could add in another 50 or another 100. Anything else is kind of just overkill. Now, I know a lot of people are probably thinking that's a lot of money, and I'm going to just be straight up, it's really not that much. If you're talking about if you're talking about handling the future of your education, $50, $100 isn't that much, and I'm pretty sure if you don't have that kind of money, your parents are probably going to be willing to help you out. I believe I did not pay for any additional applications, but if I was going to pay for it myself. As for college was a bit cheaper. I do believe it was similar. It was like $70 if you wanted to apply, and you got 4 applications, but then every additional application, I believe, was still $50 or $30 or something like that. So it's cheaper, but it's still a bit of money you have to invest. So I applied for both my college and my university applications at around the end of 2017, which was, wait, no, my bad, it was the end of 2016, yeah, it was around that time. And one of the things that you're going to come to realize very quickly is that universities often are horrid at replying. So one of the things that I would suggest is something that I didn't do, is if you know what you want to do, try to apply early. The reason for that is because they'll get your application sooner, they'll be able to process it, and they can get back to you a lot quicker. The thing is, though, is that one of the things that I've seen that happen to a couple people is that because you can apply early, you can get an early acceptance. And one of the bad things about that, I guess, is that some people oftentimes, once they get accepted, they realize, oh shoot, I don't have to try in school anymore. And that is a bit of a misconception, because though you have been early accepted, they can also early deny you. That is right. If they end up getting your marks and they see, oh shoot, this person has done horribly in the second half of the year, they can revoke your acceptance. And they can revoke your acceptance really late. I think it's actually kind of flawed in a sense, the way the universities work, because the way universities work is they don't really have a regard for the people who are applying. It's all about how much money they can get, and it's all about what best suits them. I know from personal experience, I mean, this didn't happen to me. I mean, it kind of happened to me. My friend, and even I didn't get one of my acceptances until the beginning of August. And that can make or break a lot of things. But let me dial back a bit because that was a bit too fast. So there were some university programs that I really wanted to get into, and spoiler alert, I actually didn't get into any of them. It required an interview process and as well afterwards like a small test process should you even be accepted for that, and sadly I didn't get either of them, which kind of sucks, but at the same time I've come to realize that I don't mind that I actually got rejected. I applied to 2 universities. I'm gonna keep both of them anonymous, I suppose. I mean, there's really any reason why. Actually, I'll just say it anyways. I applied to Ryerson University, which is one of the bigger universities in Canada, or Toronto. And then the other one was the University of Toronto, which is arguably the biggest university in Canada. And funnily enough, the reason I applied to that university, I wasn't actually planning on getting accepted. The reason I applied was because I had an extra application, and I was like, well, you know what, I want to apply and I want to get rejected. The reason I want to get rejected is so that in the future, whenever I make it big, if I ever make it big, I could just be like, see, the University of Toronto didn't take me and I was still successful. And sadly enough, beginning of August, I got my acceptance letter. Funny how the hardest university in the country accepted me, but not Ryerson. Come on, Ryerson, why? Anyways, that's beside the point. What ended up happening was I also made another mistake, which is pretty big, and I don't even know if I confessed this to my parents yet. But what ended up happening was I was banking on being accepted to Ryerson. It didn't happen. What ended up happening was eventually I got denied. Woo, bummer. At that point, I was around the beginning of June, or like the very end of May, and I'm like, shoot, well, I just got denied. Thankfully, I remembered, well, I mean, I didn't remember, I knew I had this at the back of my head. My college applications. I got accepted to every single one except one of them. But the reason I didn't get accepted to that one, it was for, I believe, game design. But the thing is, if you wanted to get into game design, you had to send a portfolio. And when I realized I had to send a portfolio and I had to pay an additional $80 for them to review my portfolio, I just thought to myself, this wasn't worth it. I'm not going to spend this money. It's dumb. Sometimes some colleges and universities will make you do that. They'll make you pay additional money for them to review your application, which is kind of dumb. But I mean, a lot of people obviously know by this time that education is really just a massive fraud by the government at some points. Not all the time, but sometimes. Anyways, so what ended up happening was I was banking on the university accepting me. Never happened. I decided to go back to my college applications because I knew that they accepted me and I had to accept their acceptance, basically. That's how it works. You're not just automatically accepted, you have to accept it. You have to accept the acceptance, basically, because if you don't, then they will remove you from their list and go to the next person because they're going to have a waiting list. Because sometimes you get rejected, or sometimes you're getting put on a wait list to see, let's get all of the good people in. If there's any extra spaces, the next person can go in, kind of thing. So what ended up happening was I thought I had until the end of May to accept my college applications. Turns out it was May 20th that they stopped them. And that was bad because it was the beginning of June at this point, and I started panicking because I'm like, shoot, I've completely screwed over I basically screwed over myself because I didn't accept I was banking on the university screwed me over because they take forever, which is really dumb. I don't understand why they do that. And then I couldn't accept my college application. Luckily though, I was able to get in touch with some support staff at the college that I was applying to. The college I'm not going to name drop because I still go there and I would prefer if people don't know. But anyways, I got in touch with them and I explained to them my situation. I'm just like, listen, I was I was making plans for my university. Turns out it wasn't working that well. Is there a possibility if you could reopen my application? I'll do anything. Well, I didn't say I'll do anything, but I was like, I'm willing to comply with whatever I have to do. And then I got the response, I think a day or so later, like after we exchanged a couple emails, because they needed my student number, they needed a bunch of other information to verify that it was me. And then they said, well, we could put you on the waiting list for computer science, because I applied for that. And then, but then they said, but we can accept you for broadcasting and television. And that's what I'm taking right now, and that's what I actually wanted to get into. So I said, okay, I'll take that one. I'll take it. They weren't going to put me on wait list, so I took it. And that's basically the story. It's kind of interesting that that's how I got in. I guess I'm quite lucky, to say the least. I'm really not on. I'm grateful for the fact that I actually made it into college, I guess. So anyways, I eventually got around to visiting the campus, and I gotta say that the campus is actually pretty nice. I don't know how old it is, but it feels very new. If not new, at least it feels very clean, and that's something I've really liked. I know there's a lot of older universities that kind of pride themselves on having that old feel, but if I'm going to be completely honest, I feel rather uncomfortable at times, because it's just like, it feels so old, it feels gloomy, it feels not dry, but it feels devoid of life. And sometimes having a new university or college doesn't mean that it has life because it's new, but I just think it's a bit nicer when you know, the floors are white and clean and the walls aren't just brick, they're, you know, ceramic or whatever. So there was that. A lot of their facilities, while people would say it kind of sucks because they had, like, you know, 2007 Windows computers, they were still really good. They had a lot of technology. They have, like, in their library, half of the library is made up of, like, these new Mac computers, and the other half has all the 2007 Windows computers. So, like, you know, there's for the Macs and for the Windows people. But even then, like, the Windows computers are fine. But I know they're apparently making an effort to upgrade them, so that's going to be pretty neat. I don't know if I'll be around for it. But yeah, honestly, I really like the campus so far. I think it feels really nice. That's one of the things that I know a lot of people told me is you should definitely do the campus tours, because you're going to want to make sure that you are going to like where you're visiting, because you're going to be investing a ton of money, and if you're not going to feel good going to your university, then it's going to be a horrible time for you. You're going to be spending a lot of time there. And I know some people will just be like, you know, it's just like high school, you know, you're going to be in and out. That's really not going to be the case. Oftentimes you're going to be spending a lot of time after school and before school, because you're going to have to be, you know, using their facilities to do your homework, to study. Oftentimes you're going to get really large breaks in the middle, and if you're out in the middle of nowhere, kind of like I am, there really isn't that much to go, or that much to go. Also, the Wi-Fi is really good. It was better than my home Wi-Fi, but now my home Wi-Fi is kind of like, you know, a bit up to par, so I'm happy about that. It was definitely great for uploading videos in massive files. So anyways, when it came around to the first day of classes, I think the first week or two, it was really slow and it was really chill, and I like that, because basically you would have one class, at least the way I had it, is I had 9 classes per week. And each of those classes were like about 2 hours. But the thing is, each of those classes only happened once a week, if that makes sense. So I'd have 9 classes, but each of those classes had once a week. So if you ever had homework or something, oftentimes you'd have to hand it in the next week or the week after, that kind of thing. So it's kind of like each class is on a weekly basis, for lack of better words. And one of the things that I guess was pretty chill is that for the first week or two, it was really relaxed in a sense, because there was orientation, there was the whole rundown of the course, and then they had to teach us and whatnot. But one of the things I guess that eventually, you know, reaches up to you is the homework. And well, I mean, interestingly enough, at least for my program, because I'm doing broadcasting in television, we have to learn about, you know, broadcasting, filmmaking, editing, all that stuff. And when it really comes down to it, we had no homework whatsoever. But that was obviously compensated for the fact that most of our assignments and most of the grading that happened was on our assignments and our practicals. Because what will happen is sometimes in class they'll be like, hey, here's this footage, we want you to edit it in a certain way, prove that you know what you're doing. And that's honestly a really good way of grading our skills, because at that point you can't really you can't really skip all the classes and then expect to do well, because you have to really know the program. And oftentimes a lot of people don't actually know the programs. We were learning Adobe Premiere, a little bit of Photoshop, but we weren't really marked on Photoshop. We've been learning recently how to use Avid. If you guys search it up, I think it's Avid Media Edit, I don't know, something like that. Anyways, it's really expensive, so I wouldn't suggest people using it, but apparently they have a demo, and I think you can spend $10 a month if you want to buy it, so that's pretty neat, I guess. But yeah, one of the things that I guess is really important is we have a lot of assignments, and oftentimes the assignments would be back to back, and I know one of the main things is that assignments oftentimes cross over with other projects, or sometimes it can be quite a bit to handle. I know if you're not organized, it's definitely something that can be overwhelming for a number of people. And the way it worked for us is that if you handed it in late, you would instantly lose 20%. So the highest mark you could get was 80, which is obviously kind of devastating in a sense. But it's also good in a sense, because then that means you still have another week to work on it if you're late. It's not something you want to do. Obviously, you want to hand it in on time, but if it does come to that, there's always the extra week. After that, the professor will give you a 0, and that's it. There isn't really any debating it. So the timelines and the due dates are often very strict. However, the professors are always very fair, and I will give them that much. They're very fair in the dates they give. And the reason I say that is because if something happens, I don't know, you get sick, family member gets in a car accident, whatever, something bad happens, they are very willing to listen to you and to negotiate another due date. They're very fair. I will give them that much. I personally never had to go up and ask them for an extension, but I know some professors are obviously a lot nicer than others. Some of them were, like, I had one professor, he was great. He would always just be like, you know what, I heard all of you are like stressing out, another week, another 2 weeks, whatever, as long as you guys can get it done. There was one professor I had, the one that I'm talking about right now, he didn't even care if you handed it in on time, as long as you handed it in at some point before the end of the semester before you could mark it, which is pretty great. I know a lot of people are going to say, but you can abuse it, and that's true. But one of the things you'll learn is that you're going to go from this mindset of, I don't want to take the advantage of the teacher, to, I'm going to take as much advantage as I can without feeling bad. And so if somebody gives you an extension, you're going to take it. I mean, I don't know. Personally, I'm going to take it if I need it. If I can hand it in early, I'm going to hand it in early, obviously. But one of the other things you really got to learn is time management. That's definitely another thing. With us, we have to do a lot of filmmaking. We have to plan the filmmaking. We have to edit the filmmaking. There's a lot of stages to what we do. And if you leave it all to last minute, you're going to have a bad project. That's kind of something that a lot of people have begun to realize. Also, now that I'm thinking about it, there's one thing that I should really talk about. Some professors are very strict. That's basically a given. You're going to have, every year, I guess, I'm confident that you could say you can have a good professor, like a really nice one, you're going to have a really strict one, and then all the other ones are kind of in the middle, you mix and match. The one professor that I had that was very strict, he would have a list of all of the requirements per assignment. Like, he would give out a rubric, which would make sense. But one of the things, I guess, in a sense that a lot of people didn't like about him is that he would be very strict to it. Like, for example, he would be like, the video has to be 1 minute. If it's 59 seconds, he will take off marks. If it goes above a minute, he'll take off marks. And to some, that's like a given. It's like, if he asks for a minute, make it a minute. But of course, it's like not a lot of people oftentimes expect professors to be very strict. So that's one of the things you really got to learn. Realize who's strict, who's not. The ones who are strict, you're going to want to make sure that, as tedious as they might be, that you're going to have to bend over and just do what they ask you to. I had one professor who was really strict, and I mean, I keep saying I had one professor, but I'm obviously just talking about the same professor. I did not like him at all, and quite frankly, I don't think he liked me either, but I think he kind of also liked me because I was one of the better students in the class, and I don't mean that in I don't know, an egotistical way, because I've been doing editing for years before some of these people, and so I've already known the basics of the program. So I know it's a kind of a fact that some people who are doing the course haven't even touched an editor in their lives. So he'll look at me, and I don't think he really liked me that much for one reason or another, but he did have to acknowledge the fact that I knew how to edit. And so even though he'd often give me a tough time, he'd also, I guess, either be lenient or he'd just have to give me a relative mark for the fact that I did what I had to do. That's definitely one thing I would also say. If you don't know what you're doing, you're going to have to ask the professor for help. Do not rely on YouTube or something. Not that YouTube can't help, or Google, but if you're learning, you might as well learn from the person you're paying to teach you. As well, you're also going to want to make sure to practice at home. As much as you probably want to go party and visit with friends, you could just also just not have a life and study. And I know how appetizing that sounds, but that's probably just something that you're going to have to do sometimes. If you're not going to be studying every day, you're probably going to want to try at least study during the weekend, study every other day. You're also probably going to have to be balancing life and work, which can obviously be very difficult, to say the least. But that is something that everyone has to go through. And some people have it a bit easier than others, and it's just something you gotta think for. I think I've kind of been carrying on and on and on for a bit. One of the things I definitely want to go talk about was during my time at college, I had to go endure 2 strikes, which is really dumb. The fact that we had to go through 2 strikes. Now, let me explain them, I guess. The first strike I had to go through, my college had a strike because supposedly the part-time teachers weren't getting paid enough. And so because of that, the professors went out and we were out of class for 5 weeks, which was not fun at all. I mean, it was fun in a sense because, yay, we weren't learning for 5 weeks. But then it also really sucked because we weren't going to be getting any refund. We weren't going to be getting any compensation for the fact that we're paying for an education and they are failing to educate us, which is very annoying. To put that into perspective, you're going to be paying thousands of dollars per semester, and because we were out for 1 month, 5 weeks, which is supposedly a quarter of the semester, I basically lost a quarter of my tuition to absolutely nothing. We learned nothing during that. They weren't allowed to teach us, they weren't allowed to contact us. And eventually when we got back, because we lost so much time, we had to get our assignments reworked. Some of them we ended up not doing. Sometimes the percentages would be bumped up so that some assignments would be worth a bit more, or the exam would have to be worth more. And it was, I mean, to some it was, great. To some it wasn't as great. I would say I was in the middle. I definitely took advantage of the 5 weeks. I did YouTube, I did work, like job work, and I mean, I did what I could. When we came back to it, I ended up doing all my assignments, and that was just kind of that. It sucked, but life happens. The second strike that we had, we did not have to do with the college, but the thing is, our campus actually is shared with another university and another 3 other colleges, so it's a really big campus. But what ended up happening was the university that shares the campus with us ended up going on strike because their teacher assistants decided they weren't getting paid enough. This is the dumber strike, more than likely. So what they ended up doing was they ended up blocking every single entrance and exit to the campus, and that meant that even though the colleges had absolutely nothing to do with the strike, that we were also affected. Now, what did that mean? Well, we still had to go to school. It wasn't affecting us. We weren't going to be out of class. But that did mean that a lot of transportation was kind of hit. One of the main things was that I would take the bus to school, like the public transportation. And now because they were blocking the entrances, no public transportation would go in or out, which meant that we had to do a lot more carpooling. One of my elementary school friends for a while, we had been carpooling to begin with, at least after we'd be carpooling to the bus stop kind of thing, and so now we would carpool to college, which was pretty convenient, I suppose. But of course, because of the strike, we were often late more. We were late to class because we wouldn't be able to adapt for the necessary time that we needed. And it was just really annoying. I really felt like these people somewhat felt entitled, and I just didn't really like it. But I guess that's not my opinion to hold about the strike. Anyways, as always, I guess the whole point of that was just always prepare for the worst. You never know what's going to happen. Something can happen that has absolutely nothing to do with you, but it's going to affect you anyways. You got to be ready for it. The exams I would say were rather interesting. Back in high school, everything was on paper. There was really nothing else to it. I know some classes back in high school, they would either not have, they wouldn't have an exam, some of them, but they would have a really large project. And one of the things that I've come to learn that in college, you'll have one of three choices. The first choice would be that you would have the straight up standard exam. You'd have multiple choice, some longer questions. That'd be that. You'd be done in an hour and a half. The second possibility is that instead of an exam, you'll have a practical. And what that is basically, instead of guiding you, or not guiding you, instead of marking you on your ability to memorize, they mark you on your ability to perform a task. What does that mean? Well, two of the classes that I can remember my practicals for. The first one was my studio class. We had to know how to run a studio, the director, the cameraman, the audio person, the effects manager, all that kind of stuff. We'd have to be in our own positions, and we'd have to be able to run a broadcast. That was one of our practicals. If we did well, then that'd be good. If we did bad, that was bad. Funnily enough, because of the strike in our first semester, we didn't have an exam because our professor kind of screwed up and forgot to give it to us. It's a long story, and I know this is a long video, but it's not something I really feel like going into. Anyways, one of them that we did end up doing, though, was our editing practical. And like I mentioned earlier, you can skip every single class and finish every single assignment, but if you don't know how to use an editing program, you're going to be kind of screwed over for the practical. There were some people that I guess were being pretty crafty, for a lack of better words. One of my friends ended up managing to do well in editing class without ever learning how to use Adobe Premiere. And the way they did it was that they would go home, take the footage and edit in iMovie or Movie Maker, in Apple Movie Maker, whatever it is, export it, and then say that they did it in Premiere Pro. And because of the way that our professor expected us to hand it in the projects, he never asked for the project file, he just asked for the export. So we never required proof, and that was that. But then for the practical, the professor would expect you to edit in class, and he would have everyone's monitor. He could see everyone's monitor kind of thing. Interestingly enough, I don't know, I felt like if you really wanted to cheat, you could, because you could edit on your own computer, and that's actually what I did in my first semester. So I was able to like pull up the notes if I wanted to, but I didn't end up really doing that. Though in the second semester, because we were using this like super expensive video editor, I could not use my own laptop, which, to be quite frank, it didn't really matter too much. The only difference that it made was that I would have been able to import my footage a lot faster on my Mac, but it's whatever. I did say there was a third option, and the third option I suppose isn't really an exam, but it is an option. Sometimes there's a combination of these, and it's mainly just a final project, a really big final project that you'll have about half the semester to start working on or be working on, and from that point on you can submit it at the end of the semester, and that's basically that. It'll be worth like 30%, and I mean that's really all there is to it. One of the things I definitely wanted to cover in this video at some point, and I guess I kind of left it to the last because there's obviously a lot more life moments that can be taught from this portion, but I would not consider myself at all a sheltered child. I knew vaguely, I guess I can say, from high school to college, I have definitely learned a lot, and I think I can say that I matured a lot as a person as well. One of the things that I found really interesting about my college is that at first, so basically, I guess college, a lot of people, one of the interesting, I'm trying to organize my words. One of the most interesting things about college, I suppose, is that there is no age limit, I suppose. In elementary school, you'd be grouped with people around your same age. You'd be 13 to 14, and you'd be in grade 8. You'd be 17 to 18, and you would be in grade 12. In college, you can be in the same class as a 50-year-old, 60-year-old, 70-year-old, 40-year-old, 30, whatever. You can be in the same class as brand new people coming out of high school like me, or you can be in the same class as people who just happen to be coming out of university and are just reapplying. And interestingly enough, there actually weren't that many high school students in my class, like newly graduated. A lot of people were either retaking the course, they were older, or they were coming to another program from another program. And because of that, I guess, at least from my experience, because a lot of people obviously had this false impression, I would say, that they were going to be partying a lot, especially from a lot of movies. There was absolutely no partying, at least not prevalent partying. I know there was partying, just it wasn't really around the college. I would suppose if they wanted to go partying, you'd have to go to a nightclub. But one of the things I think I definitely had a lot of respect for was that a lot of people who were going to the college weren't going to party. They weren't going to make friends. They were going because they wanted to learn, because they wanted to get better. And I really found that to be very admirable about a lot of people that were going. Though that is something that I can mostly say about the adults that were going there. Of course, there were a lot of teenagers that were going, such as myself, and young adults that were going, and they were still very immature. I guess I had this false expectation that people were going to mature and they were going to be reasonable in college. That's not something that you can really expect. That was also another thing. I thought drama was going to be done. I was hoping I wouldn't have to worry about that anymore. Nope, there's still drama. I remember I've seen this meme going around where it'd be like, it's like one of the biggest fears I have is that people stop talking in a group chat because I was annoying and that they made a smaller group chat without me in it. And I used to think, wow, that's so petty, until I realized that sadly, I guess, the friend group that I'm in happened to do that to some people in my own classes. And surprisingly, I'm actually kind of surprised, I guess, now that they haven't done it to me yet. I don't think any of my friend group is watching my videos, but if you are, hi, I'm sorry and not really sorry for exposing you guys. Anyways, back to the main story. There's one kid in my class, and you know what, I'm just going to be pretty honest. A number of people found it to be somewhat boring, I suppose. But I don't know. I don't ever go out of my way to like not like people, but I don't know. I feel somewhat hard. I find it a bit hard to talk about this, but it's like there's some people in my class and within my friend group that project their hatred and they project their feelings about this person into other people. Like they try to get other people to dislike this kid just because they don't like it. And I honestly find that to be just really sad. Like, as much as the meme is like, wow, this is so sad, can we hit like 50 likes or whatever, I find it just really sad that people are still in this mindset that like, just because I don't like them, you shouldn't like them, kind of thing. It's like, can we just be adults and just understand that we should not still be having these mentalities? And I don't know, I guess I'm kind of sidetracking it a bit in a sense, because I haven't really talked about this to anybody except for like a couple people, but of course there isn't really much that can be done about it. But yeah, drama is still definitely a thing in college, sadly. I thought we'd grown out of it, but it hasn't happened. Definitely another thing that has also really opened my eyes as of recently is the use of substances, illegal substances to be quite specific. I'm not going to name drop substances, though everyone can remember a leafy green one that a lot of people probably use nowadays. The reason I'm dropping this is because back when I was in high school, I didn't really think a lot of people actually used it. Like, I knew there was the odd one or two people or whatever that would use it, and I really thought of that kind of stuff to be quite taboo, and taboo in the sense that like not that it's bad, because obviously it has good and real world uses to it, but bad as in like not many people really use it, and like I could not think of many people that would use it. One of the most eye-opening things for me was that in college, it is not everywhere, but it does eventually feel like it's almost everywhere. Like, it's so easy to get your hands on. I have had actually my hands on it. That's something else my parents don't know, and I don't think they will know for a bit. You guys will know. Don't expose me to my parents, please. Yes, I have had in my hands substances, and for, I suppose, transparency's sake or whatever, or not really transparency's sake. If anything, I'm actually just admitting that I'm breaking the law, but in Canada, it is illegal to have this leafy green substance. But my friend wanted to show it to me. I was interested, I was curious, so, I had it in my possession. And eventually I was just like, okay, this is interesting, and I gave it back. I do not have it anymore. And I don't plan on having it anymore, because that's definitely something I don't want to have. Something else that I've noticed is that in college, there is still peer pressure, as much as that is a meme. And honestly, it's a lot stronger in college, I guess, than it is now. And I mean, it's not stronger as in, like, I don't really find myself to be somebody who really succumbs to pressure. I know when to say no, and obviously when people are saying you should try this, you should try that, I'm going to say no. I don't feel comfortable doing that, and it's not something I want to do. And one of the most annoying things, I guess, I'm sidetracking again, is that some of my classmates would come to class high, or in the middle of class they would go to get high. And I don't know, it's just like, could you do this in your own time when you're not in class? Just like, oh, I'm going to go. They would laugh to themselves because they know that we know what they're going to do. And it's just like, I don't know, like, I understand, I guess it's like, you know, it's a thing that the cool kids do, and I'm not cool enough to do it. Not that I'm not cool. I'm definitely cool. I don't know, I just think people overhype it too much. I haven't done it before. I bet it's great. That's all I can really imagine about it. But yeah, I think peer pressure is definitely a lot stronger in that it's a lot more prevalent. I've had a number of people recommend it to me, push it, that you should try it. And I would tell them that I don't want to try it, and they would try it anyways. And I mean, they would try to make me try it anyways. And just, you know what? If you're true to yourself, you can obviously defy it. Worst comes to worst, you can definitely just stand your ground and say, listen, please don't talk to me anymore if you're going to keep doing this. And that's not something what I did. That's not what I did, because, I mean, I didn't have to get to that point. But something that you should definitely know is that there will be stuff that in college or in university that you may not be comfortable doing. And if you don't feel comfortable doing it, that is fine. You gotta stand your ground, because if you don't feel comfortable doing something, you shouldn't consent. You shouldn't feel pressured to do something. If you're gonna lose a friend, or a quote-unquote friend, because you don't want to do illegal substances, then lose it. You'll find many others in the future. I guess on the topic of peer pressure, another thing that you can do a lot more easier now in post-secondaries is skipping. And the reason it's a lot easier now is because you don't have the law against you. Back then, when you're in high school, elementary school, you have to go to school, or else you'll get in trouble with the law, or your parents will get in trouble with the law. And I mean, teachers had to keep you in. Now, in post-secondary, that all changes because you're paying to go to school. So if you choose not to go to school, it's kind of on you and your fault, and you're wasting your money. That being said, I would strongly recommend not skipping classes. You'll benefit a lot more in the long run, and I mean, it's a lot better sticking in a 2-hour class and feeling bored than skipping that class and not knowing where to get the notes. It's actually happened before that my professor does random quizzes to like mark us or whatever, and he won't announce it beforehand. But my friend was trying to convince me to skip, and I said, no, the class is short, let's go, then we can go home. Because we didn't skip, we ended up getting a 5% boost in our mark because we didn't skip. And I mean, if I missed that pop quiz, I would have been so mad at him, but I also would have been so mad at myself. So yeah, there is that, I suppose. Long story short, I guess we're reaching that 40-minute mark, or around there, I suppose. Oh man, if you made it this far, I want you guys to comment 2 things. I want you to comment 4043, like 4043. Such an arbitrary number, people won't understand it. But I also want you to comment what grade are you in? Like, what level of education are you at right now, whether it's high school or elementary school? And I want you to tell me how you feel right now going to school. Do you feel alright? Do you feel happy? Do you feel sad? I guess if you really wanted to, write your own smaller version of a diary, or even make your own video, such as mine. And, you know, I'll be interested to look at it. I want to know how you guys are feeling, because obviously everyone has their own life, but everyone also goes through similar things, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, college it's really been something. It's probably been one of the best years of my education so far. The only thing that would really have been better was grade 12, and even grade 12 was really stressful at times, but I don't know, I think I've definitely come to age a lot better mentally and physically, which is pretty good. at this point I'm kind of just speaking out. It's almost 4 in the morning and I really want to get this video out. I'm probably gonna have this video out sometime at like 5 in the morning or something, so that I can prepare a mashup for later in the day, because I'm still trying to go for that daily grind. My YouTube statistics have been horrible, and I know my mind shouldn't be about the statistics, but man, I look at them and I just feel really disappointed in the way my channel's been going. But you know what? Life is just sometimes like that. I'm just gonna have to dig myself out of this hole and, you know, fix it. In the end of the day, my YouTube channel is a microcosm. It doesn't really matter, I suppose, if we're being nihilistic about things, but you know, it's something. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope this was some good ASMR or something good to have playing in the background, I suppose. Yeah. I feel somewhat enlightened. Not enlightened, like I've had a weight lifted off, but it's not really a weight either, because I don't know. At this point I'm just mumbling, so I'm just gonna end the recording here. I'm gonna edit it a bit because I did have some awkward pauses here and there. But anyways, I hope you guys have a good day. Always remember that somebody cares about you. And yeah. Anyways, as always, you know, I'll see you guys later. Bye.